Kia ora koutou, konnichiwa, hello, I'm Nathan.
I'm Tim.
What does it really mean to be yourself in this modern society?
In this series of regular conversations, Nathan and I share experiences, knowledge, and practical tools that can help us all find out who we are and who we might become.
We are the Ikiguys.
And welcome to the Ikiguys podcast.
Welcome back to the Ikiguys podcast. In this episode, we discuss physical activity. We talk about our experience with and learning about different types of physical activity. We also go into different reasons why we might be physically active, whether that be for health, for psychological benefits like more confidence, or just for the fun of it. Enjoy.
Last time we talked about food as an aspect of life to give conscious attention to for personal development.
That's right.
So this time we're moving on to exercise or physical activity. It's just about movement, about physical movement. I think for some people it can I think you might have a lot more to say about exercise as a form of work. And I've tried that myself to exercise for a certain period of time or to do a certain number of push-ups or repetitions of something. And I've found that I've experimented with that approach myself, and it doesn't work as well as the fitness gurus seem to have it work for them, understandably, because you know they got it down to a T to whatever extent they have. Maybe I'm more of a playful approach to physical movement. But yeah, I think
so. What do you do?
Well, because I found it difficult. Routine is very valuable, but routine is a bit difficult for me just because I'm a bit sporadic and my interests go around the place. I try not to constrict myself too much because I've tried to do that, and I can get the feeling that it's good to repeat physical, the same kind of physical activity. But also, if something is drawing me in a certain direction, it's good to let myself pursue whatever that is. So, for example, lately I walk in the mountains, and that builds up, my stamina. And you can feel your heart beating, at a faster pace. But even more recently, what has been really interesting for me is I've gone up to another part of the mountains just behind my house into a kanuka forest. And the kanuka trees are really tall and very thin and very, very dense hard wood. And there's a lot of them, and some of them, or many of them, have fallen over. So I'm going up there and grabbing like big, long, thin ones and dragging them down to my house to chop up firewood. And it's so rewarding because, I've got all this heat that heats my house and heats the water and cooks the food. But it's also very physically demanding. Well, for me anyway, I'm really like getting all juiced up and feeling really really alive out there, doing that kind of physical work.
Do you run on the mountains, or is it just walking, or
just walking?
Probably brisk walking with your long legs.
I don't really stop, but when you're going up and up and up, your heartbeat definitely starts and beating really fast, and you get really, really warm. I have run through the track before.
So there are tracks.
But that only I use them, so they're really not very well trodden. So it's not easy to run.
It's really
along.
cool. It's like
not wide.
You're a person with forest.
I shouldn't be going on them now because we're not supposed to with the coronavirus lockdown. Because if I get lost and I need rescuing, I don't want to. We don't want people to be taxing putting pressure on the emergency services. But I know the tracks. It's a 2-hour walk around in a loop, and I do them every month. So.
That's so cool.
And I think walking is probably the best. It's hard to say the best, but like you're moving forward, in the most simple way possible. I mean, you could be running, you could be swimming forward, or cycling, but I'm sure everyone can walk, or if you can't walk, you're mobile to some extent, to bring yourself in a certain direction.
Yeah, walking I think it's amazingly good for you. Just it's such a simple thing, but exercise, like even just even 10 minutes to half an hour a day is really good for your brain as well. I think helps you get away from, I don't know, home, like getting out of what you're used to, and then just going for a walk is a really good way to switch your mind off. Depends. It could be the opposite. It could also help you switch on as well. Like, because when we do Yamabushi training as well, we're just walking a lot. So, in nature, it's like a meditation, but you're moving as well. Have you read Born to Run by Christopher McDougall?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Okay, if you read it, it makes you want to run, but it's really hard to summarize this book in short. But basically, the Neanderthals, right?
Yeah.
And so the Neanderthals were a different species that were genetically, they were better than humans in many ways, except that they couldn't run for long distances. And so the Ice Age happened, right? So up until then, humans and Neanderthals lived in like forests. And so if you live in a forest, food is plentiful. Except then the world started changing and it comes to the savannah. So you've got lots of sparse areas where food is more and more scarce. And what that means is that if you can't run long distances, you can't eat and you die. It's supposedly why the Neanderthals died and the humans survived, is because we can run forever. It's because we sweat. And so humans are the only animals that sweat. So I think the example he gives is a rabbit. So when a rabbit runs, its bones push into its lungs and it pushes out the air. And so in order to survive, it has to stop running.
Yeah.
Of course, when you stop running, you get eaten. So yeah.
So it can't breathe. It can't intake oxygen properly when it's running.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And there's a race between horses and humans. It's like 50 kilometers or something. And humans win that sometimes.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I had heard somewhere that humans can outrun horses in long distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not in a short race, but because of the stamina.
Yeah, and that's why we survived. And so instinctively we're born to run or walk. But and so it's like a really human thing to run. One argument that Christopher McDougall gives in the book that I am convinced is true is running barefoot or walking barefoot is like 1,000 times better than if you have shoes that have a lot of padding. Because the shoes, I think it was around the 50s or 60s, they, like Nike and Adidas, developed shoes with cushioning, with the assumption that this cushioning would lead to less injuries. But if you look at the results, the opposite was true. These thick-soled shoes actually led to more injuries over time because it puts more pressure on your knees.
Yeah.
But if you have, like, I have barefoot runners, or Yamabushi, we use tabi, which have like the sole is like this. It's probably half a centimeter at the most thick, and so we use those shoes with very thin soles. It means that we can go for even longer because we get less injuries.
I think I can kind of picture that. It's because with barefoot you're dispersing the pressure on all parts of your foot,
exactly right.
And because you don't want to but if you've got a cushioned shoe, you're not feeling the pain, the pressure on the parts of your foot. So on the heel. So you just put your foot down, but then it comes up to your knees, as you say.
Because you're right. Because it puts our feet slightly leaning forward, so it's not good for our knees.
I want to get some tabi. I've looked for tabi, not too much, but I've got big toes. My big toes stick out.
Really?
So I haven't tried.
What size shoes are you?
11.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like a 9.5 or a 10. So we have tabi in my size here in Japan, but I think, what size are you in Japan? Do you know? Is it 30? You must be about
Yeah,
29 or 30.
yeah, 30,
Then
yeah,
you should be able to get them.
or just over, because of my big toes
Yeah.
makes me like 31 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit
We've
hard.
had issues with participants on the Yamabushi training not being able to fit the shoes because either the heels are too fat,
Yeah,
or the toes, like you said.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Japanese people in general must have smaller, or like slimmer, I don't know what you call it, narrower feet.
yeah. Yeah, I got my feet are a bit different, because I got, and I talked to my uncle who's from Scotland about this, that this, my foot, like the heel of my foot is thin,
Yeah,
but out here
it's
at
broad.
the knuckles are, yeah, they're broad. And he was like, oh, you spend a lot of time running around barefoot outside when you were young, so it's like a wide part here, but my ankle is thin, and my big toe is like sticking out further,
Yeah,
so it's kind of like my foot's like that,
like an
and it's,
oval.
I got a thin ankle. And for people who are listening, Tabi, you should Tabi, you should check them out on
Yeah,
Google Images or something. A Japanese traditional working shoe, or for, for, I guess you use them, but in construction, they use them,
yep,
Tabi.
yep.
They're like good for climbing, or
Yeah.
just steady and versatile.
When you use them, so I've climbed, for example, climbed Mount Gasan using Tabi, and then I've climbed using my normal shoes. The difference is, it's a huge difference, because when you have Tabi on and you're climbing up rocks, your feet grab onto the rocks. Like it's kind of like you're climbing on with your hands. It's like your feet become hands. And so when I tell people that about the shoes, like the shoes I use for running are the same. It's the same concept as Tabi, because they're barefoot runners. But when I tell people about them, they're like, "Don't they hurt? Like, doesn't it hurt your feet if you run on a rock or something?" And it does. It hurts. It's kind of like a massage. I feel so, like when I'm running on rocks, it feels like a foot massage. So it hurts in that sense, but it feels good as well. So yeah, I'm never going to not buy barefoot runners anymore. I'm guaranteed. I can guarantee that.
Another thing about Tabi is they've got the toe, the big toe, and the rest of the toes are split, like a mitten, like a glove kind of thing. Maybe as one of the factors contributing to being able to grip and having some versatility there. We don't really have that, in those kind of shoes in New Zealand or in the West.
You do get people wearing the 5-finger-toed.
Yeah.
So what do you call them? 5-toed shoes. My runners they're shoes, so they don't have split toes, but they're the same brand. They're both Vibram, I think. My shoes are Merrill, which you can buy in New Zealand.
But these are a modern thing in the West, right? Like,
definitely.
A modern technological invention.
Yeah.
But and anyway, like one of my students is from Spain. He's a PE teacher.
Yeah.
And so he's here for the experience and for the English. And I talked to him about running and about isn't it true that something like running has impact, and the impact can damage your joints? And he was like, yeah, that's true. So things like cycling and swimming, where it's a fluid, and you're still moving, can over a long period of time or distance, they're better than the higher impact thing like running. But also, it sounds like it's also not as simple as that, because like if you're running close to barefoot and you're using your whole foot and dispersing the pressure properly over your foot, you're going to use your lower half, your legs and feet, in a way that is going to reduce pressure on your joints. It's interesting.
That's how humans survive, because if you couldn't run, you would die. That's how we've survived until now. So yeah, I think there must be a certain way that you run that prevents injury. Swimming is insanely good. But I haven't been for 2 months now because of the situation, but yeah, it's basically zero impact. Yeah, the only injuries I've had from swimming are playing water polo when you get your fingers bent back, or being punched. I've got a scar just here, but
that's not necessarily swimming though, eh? That's
no, it's
that's
not.
The water polo aspect of swimming.
Maybe like sometimes when I do breaststroke, I can feel it in my knees because you're pushing out with your knees.
Okay.
So I sometimes have to be careful because my knee sometimes plays up. But swimming, low impact, basically zero impact.
Yeah.
And it feels really good to just go through the water.
I think I want to reiterate something I said before we started recording, just because it's important for me in the conversations that we're having, and that is like, I think you as well, Tim. We feel that what we're talking about here is important enough to be worth talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
And not that we know everything or we have all this knowledge about, say, the topic right now. We're talking about physical activity, but that here we're sitting down and thinking about it and talking about it together, and learning about theory, or an interesting and sometimes a poetic. Sometimes you have stories and you have images in your head that are like, oh, running barefoot or things like that, and it's a way of bringing something that's an activity that's worthwhile to have in your life, like a positive relationship towards physical activity, bringing it into your conscious, like having it as like this thing, this tangible thing in your mind, where it's like, yeah, okay, we'll put that like kind of higher up on the priorities of things that interest me and that are good for me as well. And so we're just talking about swimming and running and walking and more, but make it fun and make it interesting for you. And that, I think there's no doubt really that if a healthy, physically active lifestyle is good for you. It's healthy and healthy in so many ways, like physical health, and then also you can de-stress. You're working and have a break. But also, we've talked about before about if you go for a walk, it helps you to process things, helps you to like change channels, or let things work themselves out in a different part of your mind as you're engaged your body in a different activity.
Exactly. Swimming was, I remember a few years ago we were talking about meditation, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I felt then like swimming was my meditation, because you get stuck in your head. Except it does get boring if you I generally do maximum an hour, normally around 40 minutes, but it's because you're swimming in the same place, that's why. But running is really cool because you can just go wherever.
Well, if you could like swim, and people in different parts of the world, even you, Tim, where you're on the coast, you might be able to swim around the coast, to different parts of the sea.
Good point. Because I did last year, I did swim in the ocean a few times. I would bike up to the ocean. It takes about 20 minutes, and then there's a place that had a shark net, because I don't think there must be sharks out there. Actually, there's an island just off, the only island well, it's not the only island. The only island where people live in Yamagata Prefecture is off the coast of Sakata, and it's actually known for sharks. But they are nurse sharks, so harmless sharks. But I remember swimming, and I was scared of like something coming out of the depths.
Yeah.
Hopefully they were put off by my white skin.
Great white New Zealand human.
Yeah.
It would be cool. I don't know. Maybe they already have waterproof, like headphones,
Yeah,
earphones.
they do.
So, like, if it's boring to swim lengths in a pool,
Yeah.
you listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
So listen to the Ikiguys.
I recently picked up running again because I can't go to the pool. I realized that for me, music is like a much better motivator for running than podcasts. Like I would listen to podcasts, and I think it's the emotion or the what would you call it, like the tension, like music.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I listen to is Linkin Park, their first two albums. It's much better to get me motivated, I feel, than listening to people talk. So I've been in two minds. So I used to originally, when I would run, I would only ever listen to music, and then maybe 5 years ago I started listening to podcasts, and then only recently I've decided that music is better. It depends on your mood, though.
Yeah, I think it'd be different. Yeah, just maybe the time for you, or whatever space you're in.
If I go for a walk, though, I definitely podcast.
The emotional thing that you mentioned just makes me think of. I've heard other people talk about emotion as energy in motion. This emotion, the energy that's moving within you, and that the emotive
response
that you get from music can pair really well with the physical moving. But I think also podcasts or if someone's speaking, like if you like just imagine listening to Martin Luther King, one of his speeches, while you're walking up a steep mountain and you got the top is kind of far at the distance, or that kind of thing. You'll be like, like your chest is like pulling you up the up the mountain kind of thing. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, it depends on the content of what you're listening to as well, I guess.
So we'll be having our boy soon in about a month if things go to plan, and we've talked to people and thought about during labor, sometimes women listen to music, and the kind of music that seems to appeal to the women in the sort of the later stages of labor is really much more intense, grounded, kind of earthy music, like African drumming or something like that, where it's like you really like
primal.
Very primal, and so that's interesting to think about as well, like music like that. So
we talk about exercise, and we're talking about like the savannah, Africa. I think music exercise and music is a good combination. Never really had that realization until now.
Yeah, and like we talked about walking and cycling, swimming, and things like that, but dancing is good, just to enjoy it. But if you want to like kind of bring it into your conscious attention, it's like you can enjoy the dancing, but thinking about it, it's like you can strengthen your heart by raising your heart rate and getting your blood pumping around your body and releasing all those good chemicals by listening to some good music and dancing and have a good time, but also feel like tick that off your to-do list for today, doing some exercise, being physically active.
How does yoga fit into it?
Well, I made some notes about this exercise thing that we plan to talk about, and I had 3 categories, which are endurance, which we've talked a lot about, walking and swimming and cycling, and then strength is another category, strength exercises, and then the third category is flexibility. and just stretching your body. And I found yoga to be really good to isolate, to really stretch out your body in a way that's maximizing the kind of stretch that you can get, and using various muscle groups. And also depending on the type of yoga you're doing, you can really engage and use a lot of muscles as well. So it can be a real strength exercise. And then if you're doing it for many minutes, an hour or so, it can be a very intense cardio workout as well.
It is, surprisingly so. It's good cardio.
Yeah, honestly, man. I mean, I don't know if people are listening and they haven't tried yoga, but you try yoga. If you haven't tried it, if you try it, like go to a class, depending on the teacher, they'll get you doing stuff and you'll be like, man, this is hard.
Or even YouTube.
Yeah, do that stuff. And you can be like, okay, this is the pose. Okay, just do the pose. It's like, no, do the pose properly with all the muscles engaged and hold it for some period of time. And like, no, you got to get your breathing like really deep and rhythmic.
Yeah.
So do the pose again and get your breathing going, like breathe in and breathe right out and breathe in again. And then do the other side, and then do like a counter series of yoga poses if you're bending forward in a certain way, left and right, and then bend backwards, left and right. So you're balancing your body out like that. I found yoga to be a very good balance of these, strength, cardio, and flexibility. And I found it fun for me. But I think, it really depends on the person. It was fun because I'm more of a quiet person. So it was sort of a retreat, a way for me to like really spend some quiet time, and then be physically active. And then also it was fun because I wanted to be, to move into being more physically healthy. So feeling like, man, this is really a very good workout for me. And going through an hour or more and doing that regularly has been really good. Yeah, yoga's been really good.
That's what I need to do. I haven't been doing it for the past few days. Feel it already. I can feel my body getting tense. Yeah.
I think anyone should really start where they are. And I can imagine, it's like, man, I'm just not flexible at all. And it's like, yeah, some people can do yoga, but it's not for me. But really, you should just start where you are, and know that moving towards better physical health, being a little bit more flexible, a bit stronger, you can last a bit longer. Your heart is a bit stronger. All that stuff is worth moving towards for yourself. Not comparing to anyone else. Although comparing to, I have this funny story about when I started doing yoga. I became interested in it before I actually started doing it. Maybe some people are the other way around, where you just go and do the experience and you find it, oh, yes, it's good for me. So I wanted to become more flexible, and I remember I was flatting with Caitlin in Wellington, and we were both really flexible. Like we couldn't touch our toes, standing, bending over. And I was like, I'll give you a race. First one to be able to touch their toes. And I just did it like 5 minutes or so every day. I just like, really try to keep my legs and my knees straight and my hips, my bum out, but bend right over and bend down and touch my toes. And I did it in a month. I did it seriously. I think Caitlin was like, oh yeah, let's try and do it. I don't know. But I was like, whoa, I was like 30 centimeters away from my toes. Like when I first started, I was like, I'm quite unflexible, but this might be worthwhile to try and move towards it. And then I wasn't like, who knows if I had done it stretched out for like a couple of hours every day, I could have probably done it in a week or less. But yeah, it was very, very good to move towards that. And I feel much more flexible than I used to be. And I feel much more flexible than I imagine I would be if I hadn't,
Yeah.
you know,
Done that
practiced
challenge.
yoga.
Yeah. Right.
What am I trying to say? I know I'm still quite unflexible, I think, compared to people who practice yoga
Yeah.
more seriously. I
Yeah.
mean, but I don't really care
Mm.
to compare myself to. And maybe it's an interesting transition into not just the physical thing, but also something like a psychological or a mental effect that you have. Whereas when I have done yoga, you kind of say you're stretching out and you're putting yourself in a posture that feels a bit uncomfortable, and you really want to release the pressure and the stretch that you're putting on yourself, because it's just not that comfortable. But you stick it out, and you sort of submit to yourself to that exercise, to that experience that you're putting yourself through.
Yeah.
And that becomes a habit. And you find that, if you put yourself and you discipline yourself enough to last the 30 seconds and then you release and relax. What I've found is that when there are trying or challenging experiences in life that you have to deal with mentally, I found that I was more flexible. I was more able to be patient with whatever was coming my way, and not kind of snap and be like, oh no, this is, and surely I'm still impatient and still like not as disciplined as I could be. But I found that this physical activity had mental benefits as well. I was becoming physically more flexible, but also I was becoming mentally more flexible and more tolerant to uncomfortable situations that, where if you put yourself through it a bit longer, you can make more progress, so you can overcome whatever challenge that might be. And that is something that can be applied to all kinds of physical activity that we've talked about. Could be the same for running. Part of you just wants to like stay on the couch or go back to the couch, not really be kind of struggling to continue running and getting really physically overworked, maybe worked a bit more than you feel comfortable with. But if you make that a habit, physically you can do more, and mentally you have been through and are in the same process of not succumbing to the smaller desires that are saying, no, let's just stop, this is too much. But like, don't listen to that, keep going, and push yourself a little bit further, bit further. And of course you got to be smart about it. Don't injure yourself, but you can increase your mental stamina.
I find when, for example, when I hadn't run for a long time, to get back into the flow, it's the same with swimming, but so I just allow myself to be crap for, say, as long as I run for 20 minutes, I can run as crap as I want. It doesn't have to be fast, and just as long as you do it for, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. And then, just gradually just not allowing yourself to be crap, like less and less. So how would you say that? Like
being less lenient on yourself.
Yeah.
Being a bit more demanding of yourself. Having higher expectations.
Exactly. Yeah. Because like you start to want to run more. So if you've like allowed yourself to be crappy, like your body is like, I want to run more. So that happens with running. And then with swimming, I still do the same distance, but I let myself be slower. And then when you do it more often, say twice a week, your body gets used to it more and more. And so you can do the same distance, but in a shorter time. Yeah, your body feels much better after you've done it a lot.
I think what you're touching on here is something that Jordan Peterson has mentioned sometimes in his talks, and that is like you're in a relationship with yourself, and you're kind of negotiating with yourself, and you don't place too high an expectation on yourself where you're just gonna be like, no, I can't do it, fuck it, and no, it's too much for me. But you're like, well, what would it take for you to go and get yourself engaged in this physical activity, but that also know that it's good for you, so that there is a little bit of expectation, but like, what would be enough for you that you're like, oh, okay, I can do that, yeah, I can do that, I think I can do that. And then you sort of negotiate with yourself like that, and in that way you're not having unrealistic expectations of yourself, but at the same time you've got this care for yourself that's like, hey, this is good for you on a higher level, and let's go about engaging in this way where you're not going to give up from the start, but you're going to work towards getting better and better. And I think it's important for everyone at whatever stage of fitness that they're at, and also like the physical activity. Like I don't run much at all. I don't think I really would. I mean, it depends where I was. If there's a cool place to run, I might do. Actually, if there's a big grassy field and grassy hills, I would. But yeah, like, okay, well, for me to go and be physically active, like, what would it take? Well, okay, it's cool to be doing something for me that has an added benefit, which is like collecting firewood. Like, it's very rewarding to be because I found myself like, man, I wouldn't have done this much physical activity just for the physical activity, but I got all this firewood. And like, I was so tired halfway through, but I'm like, no, I've already hauled like all of these halfway down the hill. I'll keep going until the end, and then I'll feel good about it. Once I've done it, and I'd take breaks when I needed to, and didn't push myself, but having that kind of reason with myself that do what you can, but also let's try and do something that's good for you.
What do you do when you don't feel like doing anything but you should?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question, and it could be anything, beyond exercise, anything in life. But I found that that voice inside you that says like, don't you think you should be being a bit more physically active? I mean, it's good to be sensitive to that voice, to that conscience, and then take it seriously. And you don't want to dismiss it to the point where you can't listen, you can't hear what your conscience has to say anymore. You want to be like humble and be like, and sometimes, you do feel like, man, I'm so lazy and I really can't be bothered. But, when the voice gets loud enough, your conscience is saying like, hey, man, come on, like, it's now or never, like, when is it going to happen? If it's loud enough, if it's serious enough, then it should give you enough motivation to get up and, start where you are. Don't go and, become king of the hill and do an amazing long run, but, just start, put on your running shoes or whatever.
Yeah. And so I think that would be my advice as well. Just allow yourself to do a tiny amount as well. Like, we'll just say, I'm just going to do just 30 seconds. And then because you do 30 seconds, you're like, oh, I should probably do a minute then. Like a little bit of a snowball effect.
Well, that's interesting because for me, like in your question just there is like, what do you do if you don't really feel like exercising, but you should?
Yeah.
I think it seems like one of the most important things is like, you should. And so that voice, that conscience of yours, that's hinting to you that here's something that in all seriousness, you should be doing this in some form. And, you might have to figure out what form that is. It's not, no one's going to come along and be like, here's the exercise program, do this, this, and this. It's like, no, we want to be our own personal trainers, and we want to be pushing ourselves, but also, understanding our current limitations. And then not letting ourselves get super lazy, but when that voice is saying like, don't you think you should be? And be like, well, I'm hearing this, this is playing in my mind, take it seriously. And it's very easy to, I think, with the current, if you're living in a quiet place with little distractions, it's easier to get in touch with that conscience. But if you've got a smartphone in front of you and you've got like all the distractions, I think it can be one of the serious flaws in the fast-paced modern world that we're living in. Is like, so one more thing that I thought we could talk about before we stop talking about the physical exercises. martial arts.
Yep.
We talked about yoga and yes, and sports like running and cycling and dancing as well. But martial arts is cool.
I don't have much experience.
Yeah, me
martial
neither.
arts.
But I'll tell you this one story that it was true for me. It was so true for me, and I don't know how true it was for this person that I talked to. But see how you feel about this story. I met this guy in Japan, and he was a karate teacher, and he introduced himself to me, and he was listening to me, and he was engaged in conversation with me. And I started to get the feeling that the way that he engaged in conversation with me was almost like a way that I would imagine you'd use your body, use your whole being when you're engaged in a martial arts.
Right.
So if you imagine your the posture of your body and the way you're intending to have a back and forth with someone, and then when you're ready, you extend force from your body and your aim is to have the force have an impact in the destination that you want it to arrive in, your fist or a kick or something like that. And then the way that this guy was using his words and his whole body language, and also the way that he listened was I thought it was like, okay, maybe this is a psychological effect or a benefit of this martial arts that he's engaged in. So I mean, confidence in using your body and standing strong, being able to have a back and forth with someone, and having balance and the physical exercise aspect as well. And I haven't really had much experience myself, which is interesting, because I thought, well, not that I regret it, but if I can see it would be very beneficial to have done some kind of martial arts from a very young age, like discipline, physical activity, using your body competently, feeling confident and respecting yourself and respecting your opponent in conversation and in a fight and in life.
I didn't meet him, but so some colleagues of mine went and met a man named Kenichi Osada, who is like, I can't remember exactly, but he was like number one in the world at karate or something ridiculous. I remember them telling me that before teaching them any like karate moves or anything, he first taught them how to bow. Like there's like a proper way to bow, and if you can do that, like your confidence shoots up. I always found that interesting. Do you know Iaido?
I've heard of it.
So it's an art of sword wielding from Iai Shrine, which is in Yamagata. It's about maybe an hour drive from here, in Murayama City. But we went and had a Iaido workshop, and one of the teachers there, he told me that the American Army contacted him and asked him to give them some tips, right? Or like they actually wanted him to train their troops. So they approached him. They're like, "What do we want you to teach us some skills?" And he said that the strongest fighters, the strongest warriors don't fight. So they stop everything before it gets to the point where you have to fight. And that was enough for the American Army to tell them to not teach them anymore. The American Army said, okay, we don't want you to teach us. There's a difference in values, but right. So like the strongest warriors are the ones that don't actually fight. It's amazing. I think, I think it's the core of martial arts as well. But I don't know if you would, because Iaido is swordsmanship, so I'm not sure how it fits into martial arts, but
I think, man, it's so profound that I think they're not trying to make train the most profoundly refined warrior philosophers in the American Army. Maybe not, but I think I can imagine like the strongest warrior is the one that doesn't get to the point where they fight, but I think it's like you bring it all of the energy and the force and you bring it right to the point where it's just beneath the surface, and it's there ready to go and ready to flow, but it's not, it's not just let loose.
You control
freely.
yourself.
I think that's a good way to go about life as well, is to be engaged, but not to be desperately engaged.
That's right. Not do things out of desperation, but to be ready.
Well, like, if you imagine pursuing a love interest, you want to be engaged and you want to be like, I'm attracted to this situation, but you don't want to overdo it. You want to be dancing almost, but dancing well, but not being like, look, I can dance, like, look at my moves. And oh, that guy's weird. Leave him alone. He's a bit of a try hard. Okay. Then I want to talk about your physical environment. So we can talk about that next time. That'll be quite interesting. That's number 3 on the list.
That sounds good.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ikiguys podcast about physical activity. How does physical activity manifest in your life? What are your thoughts on this topic? We would be keen as to hear from you. Get in touch with us at theikiguys@gmail.com. In the next episode, we will focus on the topic of your physical environment. Stay tuned.